productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund. I'm the co-founder of Results Driven Leadership, where our training and coaching programs provide managers of all experience levels the knowledge, skills, and tools to become highly effective leaders. Today's topic comes from a popularity of several of my podcasts. I've done quite a few on how to be a better manager and some better manager and leader, and then some that may be best practices for great leadership in business, etc. My most popular podcast by far is one titled How to Become a Better Manager and Leader. Check it out if you haven't already, which that brought me to today's topic on management styles. I've done some thinking, conducted some research, and have come up with three main categories to define management styles. But those three styles were just a little too broad and they needed a finer point made to them. So I'm breaking those down into the three categories and into 8 subcategories. Don't let that intimidate you as being too much detail. I'll breeze right through this and it'll all make sense. I promise you. I think you'll be curious to see where your style falls into under the descriptions I share with you today. And you'll be able to peg yourself down. But before we do that, I want to share some exciting news about our training programs. They're now being offered as a very affordable monthly subscription, starting at only $47 per month for all 14 video courses, all of them, along with the supporting materials and all the tools that come with them. You'll be loaded down with everything you need to start moving your confidence, your career, your ability, your skill set as a manager. You'll have unlimited access to the programs on a wide range of materials, from how to hire people, how to be an inspiring manager, how to deal with difficult people, which is one of our most popular courses, and how to be a more strategic leader, just to name a few. I have a link in the show notes for you to access this limited offer. It'll end soon. I'm only going to allow a certain amount of them to get out, and then the price is going to go back to the regular price. And I would love to see you take the dive into improving your skills as a manager and leader. So check it out. Sign up before the offer ends. It's gotten off to a great start and won't last long. And if you, as a manager, you're looking to achieve more and gain more confidence through knowledge and tools, grab these how-to courses and fill in your knowledge gaps. Go do it. Well, let's get back to the podcast. Management styles. They vary, as I see it, between individuals. Everybody has kind of their own style. And though most tend to gravitate towards a particular style of management, some managers could choose a different management style or flow to or adjust to, adapt to another style, depending on what best fits that particular situation. Your management style will depend on various factors, I believe, including your personality, the organization you work for, the person you work for, your team, your employees that you've surrounded yourself with, and certainly your goals. And so it's important for you to know that rarely is there a one-size-fits-all style. You will likely put on multiple style hats throughout the course of a day or a week. And if you're going to take anything away from this podcast, if you're going to pick up on some developmental opportunities for yourself, and I know that's why you're listening to this podcast, you want to get better, you want to gain more confidence, want to be a more effective leader, fill in those gaps. It's going to require a look in the mirror and having an honest understanding and being clear on your temperament, your DISC style. Then decide how your employees operate as a team or department and what your team and organizational goals are, because that's going to create an adaptation from time to time. And sometimes those adaptations are great, sometimes not so great. And remember to keep in mind how you may adapt or alter your management style under pressure. Many managers have a fairly hidden manager personality that only comes out when things are getting pressured. And we got to know who that manager is. Be aware of it, embrace that you have it. If it is a negative management style, one that will not be conducive to getting stuff done, engaging your team, allowing people to respect you more. And from there, once you understand your true self as a manager, you can decide, based on what I'm going to share with you today, your current style or styles. And if you see a motivation, if you're motivated to make some improvements based on a style that I share with you today, yeah, I would be more of that. That makes a lot of sense. And you want to start developing yourself to one that is a better fit for you, you think will make you more effective, happier, more respected in whatever situation you're at. Let's write that down. Let's commit to it. So let's start with a definition. Let's make sure we're clear on what the term management style means as I'm reading it today. Management styles are how a manager works to fulfill their objectives and goals. The way the manager organizes, delegates, plans, manages, communicates, and essentially leads their team. Certainly, it involves how you make decisions. And these are all key indicators of your management style. All those things I just listed. And management styles can vary depending on where the manager works, what industry, the company culture, the country, of course. I've got many listeners overseas. The country where your organization does business, and certainly the management level, the position you hold within the hierarchy of management within your organization, and certainly you as an individual, you as a person. And always remember that effective leaders will need to adjust or adapt their management style to respond to various factors impacting either them, the situation, them, the organization, their team, so that they can remain focused on the best path to being productive, achieving the KPIs, hitting the targets. And in short, management styles are not static. There's variations to each one within each one, and certainly you can skip from the three different categories potentially as I move through these. So let's move through these. Now, here's how I've broken down the 3 styles and 8 subcategories. I had fun doing this. So what are the categories? What are the subcategories? Well, here are the 3 broad management styles as I see them. Command and control is 1. 2 is collaborative. And 3 is hands-off. And like I mentioned earlier, within each of those 3 main categories, there's some subtypes. So let's dig into each of those. Let's talk about command and control, or the autocratic management style. Command and control leaders follow a top-down approach. one-way communication. One-way communication that flows from the manager to the employees. It is the most controlling of the management styles, with the management person or the leader holding all the power, making all the workplace decisions. And I got to tell you, that is one of the, if not the most common styles that I encounter out there. I think it is our natural human tendency, without having any other point of reference, any other training in managers. This is how humans move and how to manage people. And there's good points to this, but it's not as effective as some of the others. Employees are under this style are not encouraged, or maybe actually discouraged from asking questions or sharing ideas and thoughts. I mean, it's all the boss all the time. It's the company. All you are is a conduit of information and expectations. All the thoughts are yours. All the processes are yours. If you're going to make improvements in the process, you're going to make improvements in the process. You're just going to tell them what they need to change. And then, some people, and listen, again, there's a time and a place for this type of management style. The military is certainly one of them. And it's just do what you're told to do. And it can also be paternalistic and persuasive. Those are the subcategories of command and control, if that is your management style. So let's talk about authoritative. Authoritative leaders dictate specifically what they expect from their direct reports. And they, for want of a better word, punish employees who don't comply. When non-compliance occurs, there is a punitive action taken. Employees are encouraged not to ask questions. They are required to just follow orders, be consistent in how they perform their task. These managers often have to micromanage and are micromanagers. They closely monitor their employees. And these managers believe that employees won't operate with success if they aren't monitored closely with supervision. And again, this is one that I encounter all the time. Now, there's pros to this. There's pros to this authoritative style because it allows for quick decision-making. Expectations and roles are clearly defined. And it allows unskilled workers to work with little uncertainty due to your setting of clear expectations. Now, the only way this works is if you are able to effectively communicate clear expectations, or it's going to be a real struggle for you. Now, the cons to this, the downside, and let me back up just a minute, unskilled workers. I've got several of my big corporate clients that engage with casual labor. They work through a temp agency to bring in enough hands to get certain basic level work done. And these people may be counting inventory one day, maybe stocking shelves the next, maybe moving furniture, whatever they're doing. So not particularly skilled or trained in one particular area. And so it's really important, if that is a situation for you, that you take a more authoritative management approach. Kind of required. It only works when the manager's present. You will only get things done, and they'll get done in sprints. This is rarely scalable if you are there monitoring and watching and checking in all day, every day. Another con, if you have inefficient processes, and let's again, one of my favorite sayings is, we don't know what we don't know. And you may not know that you have ineffective or inefficient processes. Well, those suckers are going to remain in place because you do not seek nor do you receive input on any kind of process improvement. It's kind of stifled. And several negatives can occur, including an increase in employee dissatisfaction. This generally creates a higher turnover. It will often create resentment between the employees and you. It's a us versus them mentality. That's when they say, well, management says. That's always a bad indicator. That terminology, that language, when corporate says or management says or management dictates, that depersonalizes who is managing them. And it certainly shows a void of leadership and connection and engagement, because this approach will create low engagement scores with the employees. And for sure, for yourself, this approach will stifle, will hold you back from your own professional development. Next subcategory of command and control is paternalistic. Using the paternalistic style, leaders act with the best interests of their direct reports in mind. So that's a little bit of the opposite, right? But it's still command and control. They often refer to their employees as family and request trust and loyalty from them. They make unilateral decisions, but they do explain to the employees that by making those decisions, you're the expert in it. No, nobody else knows how to do this but me. So I'm making the decision, but you'll let them know what your decision is, maybe even explain your decision with them. And that seemingly, or in fact, makes your decisions legit. But again, in command and control and paternalistic, there's no room for questioning or collaboration. The pros of a paternalistic approach. The words and the focus is on the welfare of the employees, and the decisions are made one-sidedly, of course, on what is best for them. You're deciding what's best for them. Employee education and upskilling are valued because they're going to need to get other certifications or other education or training to be able to move ahead, do more work for you. And this, by doing that, that often creates higher morale and certainly provides your employees with a higher skill set to make them more productive. So there's positives to that. The downside, the cons. This style might come across as infantilizing or condescending, which lives in the word parental, right? It's like your mom or dad is telling you what to do and what's best for you. Some people respond really well to that. Many don't. Because often the employees really, as much as you call them family, they don't see the organization as a family. And they might actually resent this style as being talking down to them. disrespectful to them, not respecting their intelligence or ability to the level that you can involve them more. It certainly creates a lack of problem solving and innovation because you're making all the decisions, remember? They're completely dependent on you as their manager for decision making. And listen, some people respond well to that. I am not telling you this is 100% the wrong approach. But it doesn't work for the vast majority of employees. I can tell you that. I've seen the aftermath of this many, many times. And I've often find almost everything I'm going to describe under command and control. Those are average to below average, but hardworking, stressed out managers. Now, under command and control also is a subset called persuasive. And managers, they make an effort to use persuasive skills in the approach to convince employees to go along with their unilateral decisions. So the manager suggests and implements for the good of the organization, department, or team in words, and ask opinions or for input from time to time. That employees aren't just simply ordered around. This style explains the decision-making process and the rationale behind procedures and policies. This is why we do things. And by explaining the why often, it's almost mandatory, but when you explain the why behind your decisions or the company's decisions, the employees will feel more involved. They'll feel more valued. It'll lower the level of tension because they'll understand those whys. It will reduce the resentment between managers and employees. So you are involving them, but not asking them. You're just telling them. The pros to this, there can be, if you, as a subcategory of command and control, if you adapt or utilize this approach that is more persuasive, you're convincing them that this is the right thing to do and how to do it. A higher level of trust can be established between the manager and employees. Employees are more likely to accept top-down decisions. And there's a more positive response to once they hear the logic, the reasoning, compared to if in the absence of that, you've got to manage perceptions. They'll create an internal perception of why we're doing this. If you do not give them the information, believe me, they will create their own reason why. And it may be good. Often it's not. So they see it as a threat or they see it as punishment. So they might feel restrained. The cons. Well, certainly the employees will feel restricted because their opinions aren't being asked. They're just being told what to do. Employees will still become frustrated and resentful because they know there's a better way. They're the ones doing it every day, but you don't give them the ability to share that. So that pins them up. And you're holding them back. They can't upskill. They can't develop their own skill sets. And certainly you're missing out on ideas and solutions to a continuing improvement in your workplace. Now let's move to the next major style, the collaborative management style, which I like a lot. I've utilized this often in my executive career, in my management career. Collaborative leaders, let's talk about those. They encourage input. So it's the opposite of the command and control. They encourage input from employees, though the final decision always lies with the manager. Communication is both top down and bottom up. And so it allows for more cohesiveness. It allows for increased diversity in ideas. It seeks and embraces their opinions and skills. You get all that into the soup and you have a more informed decision-making process. Collaborative, consultative, participative subtypes are common subcategories of this. Coaching and development also falls under collaborative management. So let's get into more of that. Collaborative. Employees are empowered to take ownership in the collaborative style. This leads to increased creativity, engagement, innovation. Management wants all to be involved and have extensive discussions around ideas and thoughts before coming to a decision based on kind of a majority rule. I can tell you, I learned this style many years ago. I call it creating the pool of collective knowledge. And the more I can get into my pool of collective knowledge, the better my decision's going to be, because I've got more points of knowledge and experience and thoughts, opinions, because I don't know what I don't know. And the more I can seek knowledge and information from others to make a decision, that decision is highly likely to be a good decision. Let's talk about the pros of this. Your employees are going to feel valued. They're going to feel trusted. They're going to feel heard. I've talked about this many times in the past, that one of the basic, most important human needs is the desire, the need to be heard. And using this style, they will absolutely feel heard and will feel like they're heard by all levels of management. This open communication leads to faster conflict resolution. It's proactive. You're fire preventing instead of firefighting. So bigger issues, things that maybe you couldn't think about or didn't know about, hadn't thought it through, well, those don't ever arise. Rarely, but almost never do they arise. Believe me, this keeps good employees around. Your retention will be increased, engagement will soar because of this diversity and involvement in all the different voices. This is in our Inspiring Manager, How to Inspire as a Leader in the Results-Driven Management course. Your employees will feel inspired to do their best work. And they will collaborate within themselves. They'll be less reliant on you to come up with solutions. This starts working. Man, it's a thing of beauty. And your employees will be fully engaged in the process. It's a sight to behold when you do it right. The cons. The process will take more time and adds extra steps. And if you don't have the patience to work through this and do it right, if you only do part of it, it's not going to work very well. It's not going to work as well as you thought it should. And you're going to look back and say, Vaughn was wrong. Yeah, this works. I know it works. I've seen it work dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And like I said, I've used it personally. Yes, it takes more time, but you make up for this additional time because you don't have any redos. You do things right the first time. There's less bottlenecks. There's less constrictions. But you will have additional meetings, both in groups and one-on-ones. Now, Majority rule, this is a con, majority rule isn't always the best choice for some organizations. Because in some organizations, higher levels of authority or management need to step in and make those final decisions. So your organization may not allow for this to fully function in the way I describe it. However, let me warn you that that is your organization's style. It will fester mistrust and resentment. Seen it way too often. Consultative, the subset of consultative. Consultative managers request input from their teams. Their teams become consultants to them. Team members become consultants. Then the manager, again, back to this pool of collected knowledge, the manager then takes all this information provided and makes a final decision, considering all the perspectives. Now, certainly in a real life, you're not going to be able to put everybody's perspective into it. They're not all going to work, but at least they've been heard. That's the key to it. And you've been educated. You know a lot more than you started with. My God, this has changed my mind so many times using this approach, where I was 100% sure that my approach was bulletproof. And then I started collaborating, consulting, and found that I'd missed some key points. And saved my butt more than a few times, believe me. But it also led to highly effective results from the teams that I worked with. Because as a pro, the pros of this approach, it creates quite a bond between you as the manager and your direct reports. That bond is huge and important. Because remember, people work for people. They don't work for companies. Regardless of the name of your company, they do not work for Acme Anvil. They work for you, their manager. And it builds a lot of trust when you take this approach. And believe me, you as a manager are now getting a free education based on the experiences, opinions, and thoughts of the people you work with every day. So you and your team, because they're learning from each other, they're all growing together. You're all learning together and growing together. It's awesome. And also, expressing options is encouraged. Promoting innovation and improved problem solving is the byproduct of that. It's amazing how creative your team members can be put into the environment that allows for that creativity. Nobody knows better how to do their job than the people doing their job every day. Duh. Now, there is a downside to this. Consulting your team members, once again, is going to take a lot of extra time and effort. So you've got to be patient. You've got to build this in. Because unskilled managers will get bogged down in the process of consulting. And if you're a high C on the DISC scale, you can get a little paralyzed by the analysis of this. It takes time. And without effective communication, effective meetings, which are all part of the results-driven management training course, without the knowledge of how to facilitate these interactions and have the best practices to pull this off like a pro, the time can be non-productive. So be careful with that. You'll get it with time and practice, but you've got to have the how-to of having proper communication and effective meetings. There's a lot of best practices that a lot of managers don't possess for no other reason other than nobody's ever told them or shared that with them. Get trained. Go to our website, RDL Training, Results-Driven Leadership. Our programs provide you with all that. Again, back to the cons. Excessive reliance on this particular approach, this consultative approach, it can, if mishandled, cause a perception that the manager doesn't know what they're doing, since they're always requesting how to do it from their staff. And this is a perception you have to manage. And we share this in our strategic leadership and action planning course. You will overcome this through frequent check-ins, frequent praise, and most importantly, where you control this perception is as they present to you, share with you any obstacles that are out of their control, then your role becomes to remove them. And as you remove them, boom, that changes that perception. Or if there are tools that they're missing, that there's a tool, software, whatever it is that they're missing, if there's another department that, because of the way they function, prevents them from doing it the best way possible, you got to work with that other department leader to create the symbiotic relationship that's going to work for you. If you go out and you negotiate these changes, provide them with their needs, remove these obstacles, that perception of you not knowing what you should know dissipates. So keep that in mind. Managers that use a participative style gives your team, your staff, access to information about the company's goals and processes. That's where it starts. Here's our goals. Here's our process. Let's work on it together. Then you as their leader, you encourage your employees to be active members of the decision-making process along with you. This may sound very similar, collaborative, but let me explain the differences. You as a manager, you seek employees' ideas, their thoughts and opinions, and you work as a team together to make decisions that the company can act on. It sounds something like this. And I've done this a lot of times and enjoy the beauty of how well this works. So here's what it might sound like. Okay, team, we have to get our fill in the blank numbers up. And then you give them an explanation of the background, what the needed improvement is, the whys for the needed improvement. And then, okay, how are we going to do this? Remember the word we, not you, not me. How are we going to make the changes to achieve the needed improvement? We work on this together. You say to them, you all are the ones who are best suited to making these improvements. You do this every day. So I want to give you all the opportunity to make the changes needed, including all the process steps or policies that hinder you making the improvement. And as you give me the process steps that need to change or improve, the policies that need to change or improve that are hindering you, I'll work on getting those changes made. But I don't know what I don't know. So I'm relying on you, my dear employees, to tell me so I can go get my part done and you can get your part done. Let's start with, and then you start getting everybody involved. I've made major turnarounds in outcomes and achieving goals with this approach. And I've been using it since the 80s. Pretty effective. The pros of this. Well, again, employees feel really valued by you, their manager, and their organization. It drives motivation and productivity. Engagement soars. Retention soars. And one of the things I know drives a lot of managers crazy is when they ask somebody to participate or do a job, you'll never hear, "That's not my job." Because if you regularly use this approach, they will realize naturally that everything is everybody's job. So if that's ever bothered you, this is an approach that will help. Downside, the cons of this. It can be a slow process. And with bigger personalities, if you are a high D or you have high Ds on your team, they, on the DISC scale, I've got to make sure I mention that, sorry, because I may be speaking a language many of you don't have. It can be a slow process. And if you've got drivers, if you've got doers, you got these high Ds, or you yourself are a high D, be careful. Because you have to allow and encourage all to have a say and input. And again, this is covered in our How to Conduct Effective Meetings course. So watch out for your Ds taking over. And then that leaves everybody else out. Or the Ds just start making all the decisions, leaving everybody out. There's an employee to employee relationship that you have to be aware of, and making sure you keep everybody involved and participating. And again, when you're changing or hitting on company goals, some companies are uncomfortable with sharing some trade secrets, because that will increase the risk of them knowing things that maybe they didn't know before. So you got to consider that as part of this. And there's going to be some employees that don't want to be involved in this type of decision making. Why don't you just make the decision for me? There's plenty of employees that rely on you to do that. Don't get me wrong. Don't let me tell you that again, that this is not a one size fits all. You've got to take the employees you work with in and how to adapt or adjust or adopt any of these styles I'm sharing with you today. And if you've got a high S on the DISC scale, they can adjust to this style, but patience and time is required. But remember, S's need to be told what to do. They need to know what's safe for them to do. But they are often the best idea people on your team. They just hold it back. And if it's not a safe environment for them to share their ideas, thoughts, experiences, if you don't draw them out, which again is in our courses, how you do that, you don't want them feeling left out. And if they feel left out, you're losing the value of taking this consultative approach. So now let's move to our next management style, which is the hands-off management style. And this one is a little risky, I'll tell you, but and it takes time. You have to earn the right to have a hands-off management style. I had it for quite a while, and again, enjoyed it, but I put a crap ton of work in to be able to get to that point. Hands-off managers. They take a supportive and servant approach to managing and leading. The perspective is that employees can be trusted to do their work. They can make decisions. They can problem solve without the need from you. You empower your team to operate autonomously from you. You trust them. You step back, and other than maybe sometimes creating some delegation or delivery stages, setting some expectations as to when things are supposed to be done. You only get involved outside if it's requested. It's very delegative. It's very, very visionary. This hands-off management style. It's a great one. It's total empowerment. And I've got to tell you, I have always been impressed and pleased that when I get to the point after I've made the investment of training, coaching, setting expectations, bringing people up to the level, my team's up to the level that they've earned my trust to turn things over to them. It always amazes me how they will take the wheel and drive it often better than I ever did. It's always impressive. So, subset of this is delegative. Part of this hands-off management style, delegative. With a delegative management style, you assign the task, otherwise you're absent. You're going to check in from time to time on progress. You'll be there to answer any questions. But your team, your employees know that they're responsible. They're responsible for the success. They're responsible for completing whatever assigned task they have. Because of this empowerment to do work on their own, it gets completed. They take a lot of pride in completion and the success that comes from this. And all the manager has to do is review the employee's work, answer any questions, give them guidance. And then very often it's important that at the end of whatever achievement they've gotten to is you do a debrief. You talk about what worked, what didn't work, what they need to do better or differently in the future. So that it's continuous improvement. But this one is harder. It takes more time, but man, and you got, it's almost like Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership. Once you get to this level of management style, once you've earned the ability to get there, through your involvement, through your hard work, you can get there. But it should be a goal for every manager, for their teams to be able to work independent of their daily involvement. They don't need you anymore. And man, that should create such a sense of pride for you. They just do it. And I've seen it happen. I've had it happen with teams that have reported to me. It's beautiful. And the pros of this, well, let me tell you, like I've mentioned before, a ton of creativity and innovation comes out of this. You're fostering innovation, especially when you've got highly skilled employees. Teamwork becomes a day-to-day commonality within your organization. It strengthens the employees and how they work together because they collaborate with each other. They take on challenges together. They figure it out together. They don't need you. And for those who desire, your employees who desire autonomy, their job satisfaction increases dramatically. They will love working for you. Now, the ones that are most attracted to this delegative management approach are the high D's and I's on the DISC scale because they're independent people. They like to do things their way. And that's great. But they have to earn that trust. They have to earn that ability to do that. You don't just give it to them. The cons of this. Well, productivity can suffer without the leadership if you've got the wrong type of employees that lack the knowledge and lack the confidence to follow through with this. You also run the risk of contexts or conflicts flaring up. And remember, if you have high Ds who love to work like this, well, those high Ds have strong opinions and they don't mind sharing them. And that may create some conflicts between members of your team. And that's where you as a coach have to come in and make sure they know how they're coming off, and it can be disruptive to the success of the team. And if you haven't given them enough direction, proper direction, if you're missing a level of cohesiveness, focus will be lost and failure will be achieved. And then, another kind of this is back to perception, some of your employees feel that you as their manager is not involved. And they can become a little resentful of that. But again, this is just an issue of perception. And it's one you have to be not only aware of, but be able to manage. And you can learn to do that. Then the next subset of this delegative approach is visionary. Hands-off delegative approach is visionary. Managers who employ this style, they inspire employees, as you've learned or would learn in our Hire to Inspire Your Team course. You do it by explaining objectives. You explain it or you gain involvement and interest by involving them in not only what has to be done, how we're going to do it, but the vision, where it's going to lead the company or the team to. The reasons for them achieving this, what's in it for them. And then you have to be a bit of a persuader in convincing your team to move towards executing the steps in order to achieve those objectives. And managers will absolutely, with this style, motivate their employees and give them the freedom to work with little interference. Zappos has taken this approach for a number of years, highly successfully. People thought he was out of his mind when he created his company. It's a huge, successful business now. May you rest in peace. But it does require some check-ins. You will need to check in from time to time, just like you learn in our strategic leadership course. You've got to trust them. They'll trust you. But you got to check in and make sure they're staying on track. That's part of the management role. And if you are going to take this approach, you have to be one who praises generously. However, it's also going to require, it can't all be good, that you coach from time to time. You've got to give constructive feedback throughout and following the process. Again, a debrief at the end is essential. What went right? What can we do better next time? So the pros of this are, hey, your team's going to be totally bought in. They're going to be completely committed into what they're creating. So engagement is improved. Again, retention of your best people soars. Problem solving is absolutely quickened. Innovation is not only does it increases, it becomes part of your DNA. And maybe one of the best parts is managers will work less. They'll work less hours with less stress and have a life. But again, you got to earn this one. Takes time, but you can get there. Put the effort in. Enjoy the benefit. Downside of this approach. Well, some of you listening to this podcast may not have the DNA, the DISC profile, the ability to inspire due to different factors, which none of which are horrible. Don't make you a horrible person. Doesn't make you a failure in any way. It just makes you who you are. And so it may not work well for you. You know, there's different personality types. There's different industries. There's different positions. Depending on the service or the product that you're making, you may not be able to follow these approaches. So this is not, again, it's not a one size fits all. Although I've used it extensively in multiple industries, it may not work for every company. It may not work for your boss, by the way. But employees will be inspired to perform well. But it's not a management style that can be faked. You got to be truly inspiring and truly trusting. So let's wrap this thing up. Now you have the information needed to begin to identify your management style. Others that are out there that maybe you have or haven't thought about, maybe you've seen or haven't seen. And maybe there's going to be some opportunity for you to grow from what you gained from today's podcast. Give yourself some space and try parts of these out. If you don't understand exactly where you fall within the list, that's okay. Take a little piece of one that made sense to you. And if you identified something you picked up on today as an aspirational move to your style, a style that you believe will improve you and your confidence, your ability to lead and manage, remember, it's crawl, walk, run. Take a little bit, apply it, practice it, smooth it out for yourself. And from that, you can build other aspects of these. These changes take time, and it takes training. Training like you get in a results-driven manager training program. It's all covered. All the ways to get here is covered in our courses. And with time, you'll gain the clarity you need to proceed with the appropriate, and I say appropriate based on you, your organization, your boss, etc., the appropriate management style for you in the various scenarios that might arise as you evolve and progress through your career. So thank you all for listening today. As always, please visit our website, rdltraining.com. That's Romeo Delta Lima training.com. Check out all of our courses. Check out our coaching services. Reach out, get on our newsletter, listen to more podcasts. And I really look forward to talking to you all again real soon.